What's up guys, Dennis here, and today I want to talk about whether a hatchet is really the best thing to bring with you camping in the woods when you want to build a fire. Actually, that's not what this video is about. Here's what happened guys. I went out to the woods to shoot this video and show you a demonstration, and it turned out not to be so clear-cut. The other thing that happened was all my footage is blurry. See, I had autofocus on, but continual autofocus was off. So first frame was in focus, and then everything after that, when I moved and the camera moved, it all blurry. But that's okay, because here's what happened. The next morning, I went for a run, and I had a great idea. Ended up coming out here, and I was able to make a prototype, and it worked way better than I expected. So here's what we're gonna do. First, I want to show you a little bit about what I was trying to do in the woods so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. Then we're going to come back here and I'm going to talk about edge geometry of cutting blades, of hatchets or knives or whatever. Finally, I'm going to show you the simple tool that I made that anyone could make that is very lightweight and works better in some cases than a hatchet and much better than a knife for processing firewood when you go camping, backpacking. So I'll show you that at the end of the video. This winter I've spent a lot of time thinking about camping because I can't. So I just think about it. Let's go over to where this ash tree fell down a couple years ago. I've always brought a hatchet on my backpacking trips because I like to build fires when I go camping. And I've always thought that a hatchet is the best tool to process firewood. It's just kind of hitting into the dirt here, so really a stump would be great, but how often do you get a nice flat stump in the middle of the woods? It gets to be a little bit dangerous when you start swinging the hatchet around. And this is the problem that I ran into when I went camping last time. The hatchet just didn't feel super efficient. So let me show you another method. And it just involves a knife and a piece of wood called a baton. Where'd my log go? Am I sitting on it? This was supposed to be easier. It's good to switch up the method and go like this. I'm being careful, but I'm trying to show you there's also like a lot of potential for accident here, swinging a hatchet. You always want to go straight down. Don't actually swing with a rotating motion. Straight down. Look, I'm already injured myself. This is just a demo. So now, let me show you with a knife. That was much easier. A knife that technically would probably be better for this is this Boker Arbolito. One thing it does do really well is process wood. See, that works really nice too. I put a convex grind on this knife, which is, convex is really good for protecting the edge and really good for splitting wood. It's not so great for carving and cutting and other cutting tasks though. Temagami, on the other hand, with the Scandi grind, that just eats wood. So you might be asking, why don't you baton with the hatchet? Well, let's give that a shot too. I could already tell you it's going to be harder. It's much heavier than a knife. And hatchets really work slower, and they use the weight of the actual hatchet head to do the work. When you hit it with something fast, you know, give it a sharp blow like this, I think you lose a lot of that kinetic energy in the weight of this hatchet head. So again, to compare, with this nice light knife, same piece of wood, of course the memory card runs out. I just can't win, guys. Yay. Hatchet. Better, right? But back to the knife. So much easier. So much easier. So let's take a look at something here. I was talking about how the Boker did a better job splitting the wood. It just felt like it went through smoother, split it easier than the Tamagami knife. I know I said Tamagami wrong before, sorry. The Tamagami knife has something called a Scandi grind, and this Boker Arbolito has a convex grind that I put on it myself and then polished it. The polish, I'm sure, helps, but it's more the edge geometry that affects how it splits through the wood. And to kind of demonstrate that, I've made a mock-up for you. Downvote, upvote. No, stop it. All right, so this represents the cross-section of a cutting tool, whether it's a hatchet that's very improperly ground, or a knife such as this one. And this is going to represent the log or piece of wood that we're trying to split. I just made this, so I don't know how well this is going to work, but hey, that should be nothing new if you've seen my other videos. Okay, so as the blade enters the wood, it separates the fibers like that. And now the point is actually in between the fibers. And the big thing with this is, if you notice, where are the fibers pinching? The pressure is all on these corners right here, where the bevel meets the straight part of the knife. In reality, there's going to be a few fibers that kind of cross here, and I thought maybe these rubber bands could kind of demonstrate, you know, as this goes down, then they get cut like that. Now here's something that I didn't plan on that's already happening on its own. The cutting tool now is at an angle, and it's riding against this piece right here. Well, when that happens, this sharp cutting point is going to kind of dive in through the wood, and it's going to cut a path. Rather than splitting the wood, it's going to actually start cutting into the fibers and kind of like now going at an angle through the log that you're trying to just split. With a cutting edge like this, the point is very much exposed. Well, I don't want to give it away yet. The only way I can think of demonstrating this is maybe with a piece of foam like this. You're probably not going to see it. Maybe if I go like this. No, this is a terrible example. This isn't working at all. Just try and picture it. Okay, so well, I don't have a visual for this, but just try and imagine that with a point like this, the tip is exposed to more material, if that makes any sense. The sides of the cutting edge are going to force material apart, and then the very tip is what actually does the cutting. So if this was a concave grind, you know, where the point is very pointy, I guess. Material is not going to be pushed away very fast as it comes away from the tip. So the edge, the actual point of the knife is actually going to be contacting more material as it goes through. The wider this is, the more this has a kind of separating kind of action on the material that you're cutting, and the edge isn't exposed and doing actual cutting work. I hope that's clear. I'm not quite sure how else to describe it, but this is kind of an important thing to understand. So again, blade goes into the wood. You have these very pronounced corners that are riding against the fibers of the wood, causing friction as it goes down through here. Any slight angle in here with some errant fibers in between is going to cause the blade or the knife or the hatchet to kind of redirect through here. And the tip is engaged with more material at any given time. It's out here, it's exposed. If, on the other hand, we have a convex grind, we have a smooth transition from the edge of the knife all the way to the point. The tip is protected because it's now further away from whatever material is being separated by the cheeks or the sides of this edge here. So what does this look like when you're splitting wood? Well, one thing, this will go in much easier because of that rounded shape. I mean, didn't even plan that, and that's actually kind of nice. Look at that. Compared with the, yeah. So you got that working for you. The other thing is that it doesn't have a tendency to like lean to one side. See, it actually goes back to center. If I push it like this, it actually comes back straight. So whereas if you had an edge like this, remember again, it kind of tended to like want to go one side or the other. With the convex edge, it kind of wants to ride right straight down, and it doesn't want to go side to side. Even if it did get off angle a little bit, the geometry at the point is such that it wouldn't tend to guide itself through the wood anyway, so it wouldn't try to walk one way or the other. That is nice. I really like that action. See how like it's riding on a much smoother surface there. There's no hard corner for it to get a lot of friction, so it slides down through the wood a lot easier. The main takeaway for all of this is that this tip here, this actual edge, the cutting part of the hatchet or knife or tool or whatever, doesn't have to be sharp because it's not really doing any work, right? What's doing the work here? It's this wedge shape right here. I mean, when you're talking about splitting wood anyway. I have a really heavy splitting axe, and it's got a dull tip. I mean, it's got a really dull tip. You couldn't cut yourself if you wanted to, but it splits wood like great because it just separates the fibers, and if it comes to one that it can't cut, it just tears it in half. So, all right, so that's what I wanted to explain with that. One more thing, I want to talk about chopping wood really quick, because even when you're chopping wood, a Scandi grind is not good for an axe, and here's why. When wood is green, and that's the only time you're going to be chopping wood, I hope, and when I say chopping, I mean shortening a log or cutting a tree down so that you are cutting into the fibers, knocking out a piece, repeating that until you get through the whole log. And what's happening is when the hatchet or axe strikes the tree, it actually compresses the fibers, and as they're being compressed, then they start getting cut at the tip. And then the force, finally the momentum is gone. You've cut as far as you're going to, and then those fibers kind of spring back out, and that's where you get the chips flying out from when you're chopping. That doesn't happen if your axe has straight edges like this. What's going to happen is it's going to wedge itself into those fibers. It's not going to have the same kind of compressive force, it's going to cut down to the point where it can't cut anymore. It's going to get stuck in the wood. It's not going to just bounce nice big chunks of wood out like you want to when you're chopping a tree. So even when you're chopping a tree, convex, it's a better geometry to have on your axe or hatchet. Dry wood, no. Dry wood doesn't compress. You're going to get hung up on this part. That's why if you're carving dry wood or making feather sticks or just any kind of work with dry wood, the Scandinavian grind is just so much better because it, again, that edge is presented to material more throughout the cut. Whereas this, you're presenting the cheeks of the hatchet. Why did we have to go over all that? Well, these are all the things that were running through my head when I came up with this idea. I like batoning. A lighter weight tool seems to work better. The edge doesn't matter so much because once it's in there, it's really just acting as like a wedge to separate the fibers. A convex edge is better because it has a smoother transition. And so what does that look like? A really light knife that doesn't need to be sharp. I was thinking titanium, magnesium even maybe. I was really expecting aluminum to be too soft. Anyway, this is what I came up with. So this is aluminum, but this is 2024 alloy aluminum. This alloy is really similar to 7075 with some particular differences around heat and weldability and stuff. In some ways, 2024 is a little bit tougher than 7075. The real common aluminum is 6061, and if you don't know what kind of aluminum you're holding in your hand, it's probably 6061. But the real reason I made it out of 2024 was this is what I found in my parts bin. So anyway, here's how I made this. Basically, I just took a piece of 1.25" by 1/4" inch bar stock, and I cut a 6.5" inch piece from it. And if you don't have a bandsaw, obviously you could use a hacksaw. From there, I used a file and roughly shaped it. And then I did finish it up a little bit on the belt sander, but this is totally unnecessary. The finish that you get from the file is plenty smooth enough to go through wood. The tip is fairly steep, although this edge is not sharp at all. When I first ground this edge, it was a little bit too blunt and I couldn't get it to actually penetrate into the ends of the log. So it wouldn't actually get in there to start separating the fibers. All I did was take it back and file it a little bit steeper, and then it went right into the wood. I was really surprised how well this just goes into wood. Then on this side here, I put a really blunt edge on it. This is really just more of a round over than anything, but it's kind of a convex edge, just super, super blunt here. And my thought process was that I would mainly use this as a batoning tool, although what I found was that it's pretty effective just as a wedge going down in through the log. If I find I can't split the entire log this way, then I will turn it, hammer it through so it's even, and then baton it through the log. Oh, right. So this only weighs 3 ounces or 85 grams. I weighed it on my little kitchen scale that does grams. And that is half the weight of this knife. And just as effective at splitting the kind of wood that I need to as this hatchet, which weighs over 2 pounds. So how does it work? Well, I filmed a little demo using it, and I'll show that to you now. I wish I had a little bit more footage to show you how well this works. So it's a little unconventional, but I think it's a great idea. I think on my next camping trip, I'm going to carry a small knife and this. And I'm going to process all my firewood that way. Now, of course, you're not going to cut a log in half with this, especially not a dry one, so you do need a saw. But, you know, really, what are we talking about here? We're talking about what is the smartest way to use modern tools and materials to bring the lightest amount of gear out camping, still be just as efficient without wasting time or energy. And I think this checks all the boxes on that for me. So this is what I'm going to be looking really closely at the comments, guys. I really want to know what you think. If you've ever seen anything like this before, if you ever had this idea, I don't know. So tell me what you think. If you like this video, hit a thumbs up. I appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next time. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. I don't have to worry about whether my knife is big enough or long enough. Well, might still worry about that for other reasons. Very dry. It's ash, which splits nicely. This is one of the simplest things I've made in this shop in a long time, but it's also one of the most satisfying because of its elegance.